Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide, a reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that Paul Bunyan wrote The Pilgrim's Progress in 1670 while he was in prison, and that today it remains one of the most published books in the English language? Join us on a spiritual journey through life, from the city of destruction, through the valley of humiliation, and onto enchanted ground, to arrive at our final destination, the celestial city.
February 18, 1678. I want to start by just, setting the scene, because context is everything with this one.
It really is.
We are in Restoration England. There's no electricity, obviously, no internet. The country is still reeling from a brutal civil war, massive political upheaval, the plague.
A very chaotic time.
And on this specific day in February, a book gets published that, calling it a bestseller feels like a massive understatement.
It really does. I mean, bestseller implies a trend, something that's popular for a season. This was more like a tectonic shift in the literary landscape.
Right. We're talking about a book that is often cited as the first novel ever written in the English language.
Which is a huge claim.
It's been translated into over 200 languages. And get this, it has never been out of print.
That's an incredible statistic for any book, let alone one from the 17th century.
And usually when we talk about books from that era, you think of Milton or maybe these dense philosophical treatises, you expect them to be written by some guy in a wig sitting in a university library.
With the academic elite.
But this story, it's completely different.
Couldn't be further from that world.
So today on The Deep Dive, we are unpacking The Pilgrim's Progress. And look, I know what some of you might be thinking, isn't that just that old religious allegory? And stick with us.
Please do.
Because our mission today isn't to preach a sermon. It's to understand why this specific story captivated people like Benjamin Franklin, Mark Twain, and multiple U.S. presidents. It's a survival story, a fantasy epic, and honestly a psychological drama that, predates Freud by a couple of centuries.
I think psychological drama is the perfect way to frame it. At its heart, it's a story about the internal battles we all fight, fear, depression, ambition, all of it. But he externalized them into monsters and landscapes.
And the backstory of the author himself is just as dramatic as the book. We have to talk about John Bunyan, because this guy was not exactly poised for literary stardom.
No, not at all. He was very much an outsider. He was born in 1628 in Bedfordshire, England, into incredibly humble beginnings.
I was reading through the source material on his early life, and the thing that really stood out to me was his teenage years. He wasn't studying the classics or anything. He was a soldier at 16.
That's such a crucial piece of the puzzle. In 1644, you've got the English Civil War at its height, and Bunyan joins the Puritan Parliamentary Army. He's serving directly under Lord Oliver Cromwell.
We need to just pause on that for a second. I think we often gloss over Civil War as just a historical event. But for a 16-year-old kid, this was a traumatic, violent reality.
Oh, absolutely.
This wasn't some foreign war. It was neighbor against neighbor.
It was a war defined by ideology, religious and political. The parliamentarians, the Roundheads, were fighting against the royalists. And Bunyan was just immersed in this environment where life was cheap and religious fervor was, incredibly high.
He served for 3 years.
3 years. And the records show he escaped death narrowly several times. It was a brutal education.
That context just makes so much sense when you look at the book later. The Pilgrim's Progress isn't a peaceful stroll through a garden.
Not at all.
It's full of swords and armor and battles and giants. It feels like a soldier's view of the spiritual life.
It is. He internalized that imagery. For Bunyan, life wasn't a passive existence. It was a battlefield. You needed armor because you were constantly under attack.
So he survives the war, he comes back to Bedfordshire, and he takes up his father's trade. He becomes a tinker.
A tinsmith, yeah.
Which, again, that feels significant. A tinker traveled. He would have been walking from town to town, fixing pots and pans for farmers, probably listening to gossip and stories in every single kitchen he visited.
Oh, for sure.
You have to wonder if that nomadic life gave him the template for a story about a journey.
It almost certainly did. The road was his workplace, his world. But his life takes this really sharp turn when he becomes a Baptist minister.
And this is where the politics of the time come crashing down on him.
Exactly. Because the Restoration happens, the king is back, and the Church of England is suddenly the only game in town, legally speaking.
So there were these strict laws, the Conventicle Act.
Precisely. That act prohibited any religious gathering of more than 5 people outside the authority of the Church of England. And Bunyan, as this nonconformist Baptist, he just believed he had a divine mandate to preach, law or no law.
So he's breaking the law just by holding these unauthorized services.
Every single time. And the authorities didn't turn a blind eye.
Not at all. In 1660, he was arrested and sent to the Bedfordshire County Prison. And this wasn't just a brief stint. He spent 12 years there.
12 years. Just think about that. That is a massive chunk of a human life, especially back then when life expectancy wasn't exactly 80.
And the details of his imprisonment are just so gritty. The notes mention he was making shoelaces to support his family.
He had to. He had a wife and children, including a blind daughter, waiting for him on the outside.
A blind daughter, wow.
Yeah, and prisons in the 17th century were essentially holding tanks they didn't provide for you. So he spent his days just tagging shoelaces to sell.
It's such a stark contrast, isn't it? On one hand, you have the sheer drudgery of manual labor in a dark, damp cell, making shoelaces to buy bread. And on the other hand, inside his head, he's constructing this vibrant Technicolor universe.
This whole world. It speaks to a profound mental resilience. That cell, that confinement, is exactly where the Pilgrim's Progress was born. He couldn't travel physically, so he traveled spiritually.
Okay, so let's get into the book itself, because the premise is framed as a dream, right?
Yes. The narrator opens with that famous line, "As I walked through the wilderness of this world, I lighted on a certain place where was a den, and I laid me down in that place to sleep. And as I slept, I dreamed a dream."
The wilderness of this world. Wow, that phrase alone does so much heavy lifting.
It really does.
It immediately tells you how Bunyan sees reality. It's untamed, it's dangerous, it's confusing.
And in this dream, he sees a man named Christian.
Now, Bunyan is not trying to be subtle with the names here. The main character is Christian. His friend is faithful. The giant is despair.
True, but the lack of subtlety is the whole point. It's an allegory. He didn't want you to get bogged down analyzing some character's complex backstory. He wanted you to see yourself in the character. Christian is an everyman.
So he represents anyone who's ever felt that something is just wrong, that they need to leave.
Exactly. And he starts in the city of destruction.
Which symbolizes the fallen world or just a state of impending doom.
Right. Christian is convinced that the city is going to be destroyed by fire. But what really drives him, what sets him on the path, is this burden he's carrying on his back.
This is one of the most iconic images from the book. He's carrying this massive weight.
And it symbolizes the knowledge of sin and guilt. It's a physical manifestation of a psychological state. He's depressed, he's weighed down, and he can't get rid of it on his own.
I think that's why the story still resonates. Even if you aren't approaching it from a religious angle, everyone knows what it feels like to carry a burden.
Of course.
Everyone knows that feeling of needing to get out of a toxic environment, but not knowing which way to go.
That's the universal hook. So he meets this character named Evangelist who points him to a wicket gate, a narrow door, and tells him to follow the light. And from there, the map just sort of opens up.
And the map is terrifying. I want to talk about some of the obstacles because they are so vividly named. There's the Slough of Despond. There's Hill Lucre.
Hill lucre is a fascinating one. Lucre is an old term for, monetary gain.
Money.
Right. And in the story, Christian is tempted to step off the path to go check out a silver mine.
It's the side hustle that destroys you.
In a way, yes. It represents the distraction of material wealth. The idea that, if I just get rich, I'll be safe. But the path to the mine is treacherous and people die there. It's a warning about losing sight of the goal for quick gain.
But the villain that always stands out to me, and I think to most readers, is Giant Despair.
Giant Despair and his wife Diffidence. They live in Doubting Castle.
The imagery there is just brutal. Christian gets locked in a dungeon by despair. He's beaten. He's starved. The giant actually suggests that Christian should just end his own life because there's no hope of escape.
It is a shockingly accurate depiction of severe clinical depression.
Totally.
And remember, Bunyan experienced this. He wrote about his own bouts of deep darkness. So when he personifies despair as a giant that physically beats you and whispers that you should just give up, he's giving form to a very invisible but very real struggle.
And the escape isn't through strength, is it? Christian doesn't punch the giant.
No, he suddenly remembers he has a key in his pocket called promise. It's the realization that there is hope, that there is a future, and that mental shift is what unlocks the door.
It's such a beautiful metaphor. The key was there the whole time, but the despair made him forget he had it.
Exactly.
So eventually he makes it to the cross, the burden falls off his back, and he continues to the celestial city. But the journey itself, the scars he picks up along the way, that's what defines the book.
And that focus on the journey and the scars brings us to, well, the fan club. Because this Baptist tinker's dream just rippled out to influence people you would not necessarily expect.
Yeah, let's get into that. Benjamin Franklin is top of the list.
Which is surprising, isn't it? Franklin was a man of the Enlightenment. He was scientific, pragmatic, skeptical.
Totally.
But in his autobiography, he calls The Pilgrim's Progress his old favorite author. He actually spent his childhood money collecting Bunyan's works.
I love that detail. So what did he see in it?
Well, Franklin appreciated the style, the clear, direct prose. He said that The Pilgrim's Progress was more generally read than any book except the Bible. But for Franklin, I think he really respected the self-improvement aspect of it. Christian is a man trying to better his condition, and Franklin was all about that.
And then you jump forward to the U.S. presidents. Grover Cleveland said it was the most valuable influence of his life. But the one that really gets me is Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Oh, the FDR connection is so powerful.
So we have this quote in the notes that FDR used in 1936. It was actually originally sent to his cousin Theodore Roosevelt's classmates when Teddy died. It's from the end of the book, where a character named Mr. Valiant for Truth is about to die, or cross the river.
It's one of the best passages in English literature, hands down.
It reads, "My sword I give to him that shall succeed me in my pilgrimage, and my courage and skill to him that can get it. My marks and scars I carry with me, to be a witness for me that I have fought his battles, who now will be my rewarder."
My marks and scars I carry with me. Just think about that coming from FDR.
Right.
Here is a man who was paralyzed by polio, who couldn't stand without these heavy, painful steel braces. He literally carried the marks of his battle on his legs every single day.
That reframing is so profound. Usually we want to hide our scars. We want to look perfect, effortless.
Yeah.
But Bunyan, and by extension FDR, is arguing that the scars are your credentials.
They're the proof.
They're the proof that you were in the arena.
Yeah, it dignifies suffering. It stops suffering from being just a tragedy and turns it into a witness. That's a very soldierly way to look at life.
Ronald Reagan tapped into it too.
He did. In 1981, he was quoting Robert Louis Stevenson's analysis of Bunyan, and the quote was, "We are all travelers in what John Bunyan calls the wilderness of this world, and the best that we find in our travels is an honest friend."
Which highlights the other side of the book, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Christian has friends. He has faithful. He is hopeful. It's not a solo mission.
Exactly. You need community to survive the wilderness.
Now, we've talked about the political figures, but the literary legacy is just as massive. When you look at the list of books inspired by The Pilgrim's Progress, it's basically the blueprint for the modern novel.
It really is. It established the quest narrative. You see it everywhere. Mark Twain wrote Innocents Abroad, but the subtitle was The New Pilgrim's Progress.
But in a satirical way, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Twain being Twain, he was using Bunyan's structure to critique modern tourism and religion, but he was still using the structure.
And Little Women. I had totally forgotten how central Bunyan is to it.
It's the framing device for the entire book. The March sisters are literally playing a game of Pilgrim's Progress at the beginning. They name their burdens, their character flaws like vanity or anger. And the whole novel is them trying to work through those flaws to reach their own celestial city.
But the one that surprised me most in the research was The Wizard of Oz.
It seems odd at first, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But strip it down. A protagonist is swept away from home. She has to travel down a specific colored path.
The yellow brick road instead of the narrow path.
Exactly. She's heading to a specific shining city, the Emerald City, to see a powerful figure who can grant her wish. And along the way, she gathers companions who are missing pieces of themselves. A heart, a brain, courage.
That is wild. It's the same DNA.
It is. L. Frank Baum took the structure of Bunyan's spiritual allegory and secularized it into an American fairy tale, but the bones are identical.
So we have this narrative structure, this map, that authors have been using for centuries. But I want to pivot back to Bunyan's original intent. Because for him, the map wasn't just a storytelling device. It was a theological argument about foundations.
That's the key word, foundation. The whole point of the allegory is that the journey is dangerous, so what you stand on matters.
The source material draws a really interesting comparison here to another religious text, the Book of Mormon, specifically a passage involving a prophet named Helaman.
Yes, Helaman chapter 5, verse 12. It's a very famous passage in that tradition. Helaman is teaching his sons, and he tells them they must build their foundation upon the rock of our Redeemer.
The rock. That's a very Bunyan-esque image.
It is. And the reason Helaman gives is almost identical to the lessons in Pilgrim's Progress. He says that when the devil sends forth his mighty winds and hail, basically when the storm hits, if you are built on the rock, you won't fall.
It reminds me of Christian facing giant despair, or the lions at the gate. The danger is guaranteed. The variable is the foundation you're standing on.
Exactly. Both texts, Bunyan's allegory and Helaman's sermon, are asking the reader the same fundamental question. When the pressure comes, what is holding you up? Is it a sandy foundation, as Helaman calls it, which could be things like hill lucre, wealth or social status?
Right.
Or is it something permanent?
It's comparative theology, but it's also just it's practical life advice. You don't find out your foundation is weak on a sunny day. You find out when the storm hits.
And Bunyan's life was one long storm, 12 years in prison. He could have been bitter, he could have crumbled. But because his foundation was secure, in his view, his faith, he was able to produce this masterpiece of hope from a cell of despair.
It really is an incredible legacy. John Bunyan died on August 31st, 1688. He was 59 years old.
And he was buried in Bunhill Fields in London.
Which is a significant place, isn't it?
It is. It's known as the burial ground for nonconformists and dissenters. You have Daniel Defoe there, William Blake. It's a resting place for the rebels, the people who didn't fit into the established box.
It's the perfect place for the tinker who wrote a dream in a dungeon.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've looked at the history, the psychology, the theology, but I want to leave you with the provocation from our source material. It's a question that really cuts through the centuries.
We are all travelers. That part hasn't changed.
Exactly. We are all still walking through the wilderness of this world. So the question is this: what is the city of destruction you're trying to leave behind? What are the habits, the anxieties, the situations that you know are toxic?
And who are you walking with? Do you have an honest friend or a hopeful who keeps you on the path?
And maybe most importantly, when you meet giant despair, because we all meet him eventually, do you know what key you have to get out?
That's the question that matters.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into the Pilgrim's Progress. We'll catch you on the next journey.
Thank you for joining us for this day in his story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in his story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.